What's going on, everybody? Welcome on in. I hope we're doing well. Today is the day that Phasmophobia Kinetic Games releases their biggest update of the entire year, and the biggest update we've seen since August of 2023, almost a year ago, and it's got so much stuff in it. A new map, tons of balancing changes, tons of progression changes, equipment changes, and hotfix. Without any further ado, let's get into it. There is a lot of stuff here, so much. I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as possible. If you ever have any questions or comments, please make sure you utilize it in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this new update. Here we go. First things first, due to the size of the update, we have given it the version number of version 0.10, even though the roadmap originally planned different content for that version number. So real quick, not even going to dwell on this very much. Essentially, what they're saying is they jam-packed a whole bunch of stuff into one update instead of doing several different updates like they had considered doing on the 2024 roadmap. So things are a little bit different. They're still going to have the same stuff that they're planning to do the rest of the year. It's just going to be the version numbers are going to be different. So not really that big of a deal at all. The roadmap is still accurate, just different version numbers of the things to come. What we've all been waiting for, something that's been teased for like almost the entire year, or maybe even over a year at this point. I don't even know. Point Hope Lighthouse is here. Point Hope was recently refurbished by a young family seeking something unique to call home. You've been welcomed by a modern extension, complete with a hallway, closet, and downstairs bathroom before entering into the lighthouse's main living room. Decorated with nautical knickknacks, you'll be faced with spiral staircases and round rooms, first for a ghost hunters. Now, we've never ever had very narrow rooms. We never had rounded rooms, that's for sure. And this is definitely a very interesting take because this is not a large map width-wise. This is a large map vertical going up and down. This is a very tall map, complete with 10 floors, 12 rooms, and a unique layout which will challenge players in new ways. One thing I can think about, let's just talk about this at the top of my head real quick. Banshee testing. It's going to be so hard to test for a Banshee on no evidence runs now because you're going to have a very narrow room. How are you going to know if that ghost is roaming towards you if it can't do it on a different floor? And the whole map is basically new floors. There's not a whole lot going on one floor. It's basically you're trying to test things through different floors. So being able to get things like parabolic objectives, trying to test for a yokai by trying to see if you can get it to come to you with your electronics from a different floor, it's going to be very challenging, and you're going to have to really try to rely on your ability to loop the ghost. This map is going to give you a lot of opportunities to break line of sight, to use the staircase to go to a new floor, and constantly keep looping the ghost. Although there are going to be regular hiding spots too, like lockers and things of that nature, you're going to be utilizing looping. So I'm wondering if this is going to be the new OG looping map where new players can learn to loop the best. And I'm going to go ahead and evaluate that. If that's the case, you better believe I'm going to make a video on it in the future. So here's to come. This map unlocks at level 15. I think that's relatively fair because I think if a new player were to jump into this map any sooner than 15, I think they would be very, very confused. I think it's better to utilize some of the smaller maps, some of the houses, some of the farmhouses. That is going to be a little bit easier for you to be able to understand and maneuver around as a new player compared to this map, which is a very unique experience, even for players that have played this game since the beginning. So I think 15 is totally fair for unlock level. Going down to the progression updates. Several progression equipment items have been adjusted based on community feedback. Player leveling and rewards. This is good. I really enjoy the fact that the amount of XP now that it takes to level has been reduced by around 10% for all levels, no matter what level you are. So you're going to hit your prestiges hopefully significantly faster than you were before. And I think this is a good call out because if you were playing on intermediate, professional, or nightmare exclusively, it was a very long time until you got that next level. Until you got that next prestige, I should say. So if you were doing customs, you probably leveled up pretty quickly. If you were doing base defaults, like you were doing, like I said, intermediate, professional, or nightmare, it was going to take you a long time to level. So this should hopefully cut that time significantly by 10%, which I would say is a significant decrease in XP required. So hopefully everybody feels the effects of that. Players can now level up to 9,999 for each prestige. This is really a call out to all the players out there who didn't want a prestige. Some people don't want to go to the next prestige. They just want to keep leveling infinitely until they get to, whatever the end block is. I think previously it was 999. Now it's going to let you go to 9,999. So if you want to be Prestige 1, level 9,999, you absolutely can. You don't have to go to the next Prestige if you don't want to. You can have a really massive level to show off to all your friends. So the choice is yours. It's a cool thing there. Feel free to take advantage of it. The required experience needed to level between 999 and 9,999 will increase every level. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. Like, if you're going to try to go to that absolutely insane level, you're going to have to still grind for it. It's not going to be the same amount of XP. It's not going to be like 5,000 XP to level every single time past that point. It's going to keep getting more and more. It's going to keep getting increasing over time, which would make sense. That makes sense to the overall progression of the game. Sunny Meadows Restricted is now categorized as a medium map, which I think is probably fair. You know, depending on when you get, it could be still substantially large. So a medium map feels right for that kind of map. Increases the rewards from identifying the ghosts in medium and large locations. If you identify the ghost in a medium location, it's now about a $25 increase from 125 to 150. Large maps are a $50 increase from 150 to 200. I know this doesn't seem like a lot of money, but you got to keep in mind that if you're doing a difficulty multiplier, that amount is going to get multiplied by your multiplier. So if you're doing a 4 times multiplier, it's $50 times 4. So it starts getting added up really quickly and you start accumulating more money and more XP. So it's actually a really good change, I think. It's going to be a lot more money, especially if you're a newer player and you really need that money to be able to unlock some new stuff, or you just recently prestiged and you need money to be able to unlock new stuff as well. You're going to be able to get it back quicker, so that way you're able to spend that money. Dots. Tier 1 dots. If you've been part of my community for some time, you know that Tier 1 dots is my least favorite equipment in the entire game. Has had the light range increased. I'm going to be testing this out in gameplay today. You better believe it. I really hope it's substantially better than it has been, because Tier 1 dots sucks if you have a big ghost room. It's terrible. Tier 3 dot scanning effect can now be paused by interacting with it while it is rotating. Oh my god, this may be the best change of the entire update. The fact that we no longer have to listen to the tier 3 dots constantly oscillating back and forth, that terribly loud noise, and we can get it to pinpoint, lock in place, and just shine down in one area. That is going to be incredible. I cannot tell you how frustrated it was to have to hear that loud noise every time I try to get my parabolic objective, and then I would have to go to the dots projector for tier 3, turn it off so I didn't have to hear it. It was just too loud. So this will make things substantially easier. Hopefully. That is a big improvement to life. EMF readers. Tier 1 needle will no longer flicker near or past the 5 value during events and hunts to stop confusion. So if you were using Tier 1 EMF reader, you would have noticed that the only time it actually was EMF 5, if it was going, the little needle for the measurement was going way past 5, like it was going off of the grid. That would mean EMF 5. Anything a little bit before 5 means it's an EMF 4. That is not the case anymore. That needle will point directly to the number that it is giving you for that EMF reading. So it should take out any confusion, and I think this is much needed for new players. It was getting very confusing, and I know a lot of people had asked questions about stuff on my content and my videos and everything. I hope this helped you. I hope you find this easier. It's very cut and dry now. Tier 3 EMF 5 reading now plays a unique sound, so now you don't have to actually pick up the Tier 3 EMF reader to know if you got EMF 5 or not. You just have to be able to identify it by knowing what the sound sounds like for EMF 5 readings, which should be a little bit of an improvement as well. You don't have to actually go out of your way to go pick it up off the floor or wherever it's sitting at the time and go check it out. A little bit of a quality of life improvement there as well. Now we're up to firelights. Increase the visible light intensity and range for both Tier 1 and 2. Cool. Tier 1 duration increased from 3 minutes to 5 minutes. Tier 2 duration increased from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, so double there. And firelights and igniters will now extinguish accelerating heavy rain. For example, they will no longer be extinguished under house porches or inside small tents. Big improvements here. I've always said that if you're going to do a custom difficulty that doesn't allow you to use flashlights or any sort of flashlight-like materials or equipment, you should be able to utilize some sort of igniter with a combination of a firelight to be able to provide enough light source for you to be able to see around the surrounding areas, especially if you're doing an Apocalypse 3 challenge. You need to have that lantern give enough light so you can actually see, and I think that may be the case now. Hopefully, at least for tiers 1 and 2. Tier 3, it does give off enough light already, but tiers 1 and 2 never gave off really much at all, so we're going to be seeing those improvements. These two right here, for the time increases for duration for tier 1 and tier 2, massively needed. When I had Prestige and I had a ghost that was very temperamental, it wouldn't blow out that firelight, that candle, to give me my optional objective. I was always so furious. Now, I'm going to have more of an opportunity to get it done without that wax dwindling down and then me being out of candles. So I'm very glad for this change, especially the tier 2 one. That's a very generous amount of time increase. It's a double from 5 to 10. Love it. And I would almost, whenever it was raining on a campsite map, I would almost never even try to get a firelight extinguished objective, because even inside the tents, it was extinguishing my firelight from the rain, which didn't make any sense at all. You'd carry it all the way to the tent, try to light it in there, and somehow it would still go out even inside the tent. So hopefully that's fixed. You'll be able to go ahead and get those objectives again on the outdoor maps. Let's go. Headgear. A customizable key binding has been added to the controls page for turning on and off headgear. Amazing. I know a lot of people did not like the idea of having to hold down T, a button that was already being utilized to turn off your flashlight that may be inside your inventory. So if you don't like that, you can go in the control settings and change it to whatever button you want it to be. Turning headgear tier 1 on and off will now play different sounds to help people know what state the equipment is in. It's always very difficult to know if your tier 1 headgear is on because you don't actually see anything different. It doesn't provide a light or anything. It just allows somebody inside the truck to be able to see through your head cam. So being able to have some sort of noise identifier that it's on is going to help a lot of players out. Then, to make even better, while within range of a ghost event or hunt of a ghost, tier 3 will now have visual interference, and all other tiers will play a sound. So that means that if you rush to a hiding spot and you don't remember to turn off your headgear, it's going to make a noise to let you know that the ghost knows exactly where you are, and you should panic and you should turn it off. And if you have a smudge stick, you better get ready to smudge because the ghost is coming for you. So that is going to save a lot of people from dying needlessly to accidentally not turning off their headgear, which I have done many times, as I'm sure many of you have too. So this is going to be a nice quality of life increase as well. I love it. Parabolic tier 1's red light will now flicker when a sound is detected. That's going to be very good for accessibility for any players that are difficult of hearing. So if you can't hear the sounds that are coming through the parabolic, now you're going to be able to tell if you got a parabolic reading sound just by seeing if the red light flickers. So it's a cool accessibility thing. I think it's a great idea. Tier 3 can now receive sounds one floor above or below the player using it, the new UI to show which floor the sound is coming from. Cool. So that means that tier 3 parabolic is the only tier of parabolic that's going to be able to get a sound reading from a floor that's above or below you. Tier 1 and tier 2 will not. This is a very big distinction, especially if you're doing a new map like Point Hope Lighthouse. You are never going to be able to hear sounds from a ghost when it's a floor above you. And since it's a very vertical map, it's always going to be probably above or below you. So tier 1 and tier 2 parabolic microphone are going to be useless on that map. So just keep that in mind. So I also think it's going to be a good way to be able to help you out in bigger maps as well, like high school, prison, Sunny Meadows, etc. If you have the tier 3 parabolic microphone, you'll be able to know where the ghost is, even if it's not on the same floor as you, and that's going to help you find the ghost faster. I wish those features would come to tier 2 as well. That way, you know, obviously tier 1, you want that to be the crappier version of the parabolics, but I do feel like it should be included in tier 2 as well, but I will let you comment on that below with your thoughts. You now have to hold the parabolic microphones and turn them on or off. Okay, so you can't turn it off. Before, it used to be able to be sitting on the ground. You could left click it and it would turn it on or off on the ground. Now you can't do that anymore. The reason for that is because it was giving people their parabolic microphone objective even when they weren't holding it. So that was a problem. So now you have to actually hold it to turn it on or off so that way you don't cheese getting the objective done. Thermometer. All right, this is going to be a painful one. I'm ready. I'm ready in my soul to be upset by this paragraph. Here we go. Holding down the use button while holding a thermometer tier 2 or 3 will now continuously update instead of having to restart after each reading. That's a nice increase, but where's the bomb I'm looking for? Here it is. Tier 1 now has a randomization to make it consistent with other tiers. I just don't understand. Like, I understand that we want tier 1 to be the worst version of the thermometer. That just makes sense progression-wise. But a mercury thermometer in life has no randomization to it whatsoever. So why add randomization to it in the game? There should be no randomization to any tiers to any tiers of thermometer whatsoever. I don't want to have to wait 10 minutes to get freezing temperatures. I'm so tired of it. We've all heard the expression delayed freezing. It's annoying, it's inconvenient, and it delays gameplay. There's just no point to it. So I really wish they would take all randomization out for all the tiers. If they want to make one a little bit better than the other, I get it, but make it somewhat comparable, because it's not worth making players upset about. It's just not. Tier 2 hold time has been reduced from 2 to 2.5 seconds from 3. Okay, half a second increase, got it. Tier 3 randomization has been reduced to make it more accurate. So they're trying to make Tier 3 the best thermometer. Everybody wants to use it. More than likely, if you've been using the Tier 1 thermometer all this time, you're more than likely going to want to switch over to Tier 3 as soon as you possibly can. You're going to actually want to upgrade your thermometers now to get to Tier 3 and the Tier 2. It's unfortunate. It's a massive, massive blow to the community, especially after how long we've been using Tier 1 for. And we were trying to make a statement to the developers saying, hey, you should make Tier 2 and Tier 3 even better. But instead, they decided to nerf Tier 1 and make Tier 2 and Tier 3 just okay. And I think that's awful. I think that's terrible. This is probably my least favorite thing in the entire patch notes so far. Tripods and video cameras. Ghost will now throw cameras more consistently. Tripods Tier 1 get knockdown chance from 20 to 30. Tripod Tier 2 knockdown chance is increased from 10 to 20. I mean, if this is something they really want in the game, then by all means, this is probably the change they needed. I have almost never ever seen tripod tier 2 get knocked down for me, but if I ever have a video camera that's not on a tripod, it does get thrown consistently. I think that tripod tier 3 should pretty much almost never get knocked down. It should be the sturdier of the one, so hopefully that's the case, but I don't really have much of an opinion on this. I don't mind having to go back inside to reposition the tripod if that's what they want, especially if it's a smaller map. If I'm playing solo on a big map, it's going to be inconvenient, but if that's how they want it to be and that's the mechanics they're looking for, then I'm for it. Sanity medication. Tier 1 restoration has been decreased to 20 seconds from 30 seconds. Tier 2 has been decreased to 10 seconds from 20 seconds. And Tier 3 will now instantly refill your sprint endurance in addition to keeping it full for 10 seconds. So they're just making it so the restoration pills, no matter what tier, is working more efficiently and quicker. And I think that is definitely needed, because I don't want to have to take a Tier 1 sanity restoration thing, drink, whatever, and have to sit around the truck and wait to go back in. I want it to kind of work pretty quickly. So this is going to help that out significantly, because a lot of players don't know that if you go back into the location that's pitch dark and you don't have the lights on, and you don't wait for that sanity pill to fully restore your sanity, you could get hunted again because it didn't actually fully work. You didn't give it the time to restore your sanity to its max capacity. And so they go back inside, they get hunted again. They're like, what do you mean? I just took a pill. So it confuses a lot of people. Sound sensors. Mute buttons have been added to each sound sensor truck UI. This is great, because if you were ever utilizing sound sensors, and I know a lot of the community doesn't use them at all, that's fair, I get it. Instead of having to hear all those weird sounds inside the truck from, being able to hear like the ghost hunting inside the location where the sound sensor is, and hearing all those noises inside the truck, you'll be able to mute the sound sensors so you don't have to hear all those noises. So once you know where the ghost is and you hear the sound sensor like give you the idea of where you have to go in the map, you can go to the truck UI, you can go ahead and mute all the sound sensors so you don't have to hear it anymore. Nice little quality of life increase, I like that. Spirit box. Small environment lights such as lamps must now also be turned off to receive a proper response. Okay, you must now hold the spirit box to use it with text-based voice recognition. Okay, I actually didn't know about this one right here. I didn't know that people were able to use text-based recognition without holding it. I didn't know that at all, because I don't use text-based recognition, I use voice. But this one, this is very important to note them, because if you are inside of a tent and there's a little lantern in there and you have that lantern on, you have to turn it off in order to give Spirit Box response. Keep that in mind. If you're inside the small office in Sunny Meadows, the room to the left, and if you have that small lamp on the desk, or any desk lamp inside of any map, it's not going to give you Spirit Box response. You have to turn all the light sources off in order to get the proper Spirit Box response, if there is going to be one. So don't make the mistake of leaving the light on anymore by mistake. Don't do it. You're going to get very aggravated with yourself. Remember to turn off all light sources before starting your Spirit Box session. Last equipment update with UV. Tier 1 and Tier 2 have been swapped for better progression during leveling. So Tier 2 UV is now going to be Tier 1. tier 1 glow stick is now going to be tier 2 UV. So you're not going to get your glow stick until you unlock tier 2 UV. It is what it is. I understand the tier 1 UV is very strong. Being able to get the possibility to see ultraviolet evidence from all areas around the glow stick is very strong compared to a small cone you're going to get with a UV flashlight. So I understand this change. Do I love it? No, because I love my glow stick. Everybody does. But I get it. I understand where they're coming from. We're moving into the optimization section of the patch notes. We've drastically improved the performance of several areas of the game, which will now result in fewer stutters, higher FPS, and quicker load times, especially on low-end machines. The number of fixes and optimizations would be too many to list, but here are a few we have received the biggest adjustments. Photos and cameras, shadows, the weather and sky effects, UI, physics, audio, reflections, textures and shaders, and tent door cloth systems so that they don't flutter around all over the place. You don't hear like the tent flaps constantly fluttering throughout the map. I know there's so many people right now who are very aggravated the console release is not here yet, or it's not being talked about. Let me tell you one thing right now. This whole optimization section was needed for console to even be thought about, because the game is not purely optimized. It hasn't been. Maybe it's definitely more in the direction it should be now with all these massive changes here, but the game wasn't running well on PlayStation and Xbox. I mean, that was the kind of what we heard from the developers, their feedback when they were talking about console over a year ago. They're like, our game needs to be optimized a lot in order for this to happen. That's why they did the whole Maple Lodge rework. In the first place, Maple Lodge was not running well at all. And then once they fix Maple Lodge, you're like, okay, all of the maps are not running that great, especially on PlayStation and Xbox VR. So these were needed in order for that to happen. And I know a lot of people are upset about the console release being delayed. I get it. I am too. I want you all to be able to play Phasmophobia. I truly do. I want this community for this game to expand and grow because it's going to benefit the game. So, but this needed to happen, and this is a step in the right direction, and I hope everybody is able to at least identify that. Moving down to training. Let's face it, the training grounds are not great. If you're a new player and you're leaving that training boot camp, you're probably left with a lot of questions still, and you're still not sure what's going on. But they've made some improvements to go ahead and make it all a little bit better. I'm not going to go over any of these, to be honest. If you're a new player, feel free to go ahead and do the training grounds. If you've never done it yet, do it for the first time. Let me know what you think in the comments, because to be honest, I still don't think with all these changes, it's good enough. I think there should be an interactive walkthrough of the game. For example, I think you should be able to go into Tanglewood, and then as you start to get evidence and as you start to pick up equipment, there's a voice prompt from the radio guy that says, hey, this is an EMF reader. In order to get an EMF reading, you have to be able to hold it up to an item that was just interacted with by the ghost. And that's how it works. If you get an EMF 5, that's evidence. There should be a very interactive walkthrough hand-holding tutorial, not just you going room to room. There should be a way more advanced tutorial. I'm going to die on that hill. Because it's important for new players to understand what's going on in this game and to feel comfortable. Here's some new stuff. New ID card badges can be unlocked. The Lighthouse Keeper, correctly identify the ghost on Point Hope 50 times with a reward multiplier above 0. Apocalypse Bronze, correctly identify the ghost, take a ghost photo, and complete all objectives on Sunny Meadows at a difficulty higher of 6 or higher. We're going to be getting new ID badges now for the new map. So this incentivizes people to play the new map, which I love. I love it. I'm going to go for this. You better believe. I already have both of these. If you're not familiar with the Apocalypse trophies, please make sure you go look it up. There's presets for you inside of the preset difficulties inside the gameplay. You can go ahead and you can set your difficulty and you can try to work your way towards these. The bronze is a little bit easier, then silver is a little bit harder, and then obviously gold is the hardest, having to be on a 15 times difficulty, which is the highest difficulty in the game. That's all settings on max difficulty is the gold. If you already have completed any of the Apocalypse challenges, you will need to complete a single game of any kind to receive your new ID awards. So that means that if you've already completed any of the Apocalypse stuff, all you have to do is complete one game, and it should automatically give you all your badges that you are owed and you've already gotten. That's good. That's a good call out there. I'm going to make sure that this works and I get my badges as well. Players can now carry an igniter in addition to 3 other items. Note, non-VR players can only carry 1 igniter at a time. Similar to flashlights, igniters now have their own slot in the VR belt. Okay, I'm not sure how this is going to work. Are you going to be able to carry an igniter in its own slot even if you're not a VR player or only if you're a VR player? I'm not sure how this is going to go because if I can hold an igniter at all times and not have it take up an inventory slot, you better believe I'm going to do it. So that way I'll be able to have an igniter. Then I'm going to have 3 additional slots. 1 is going to be a smudge stick, obviously. 1 is going to be a piece of equipment. And then 1 may even be a flashlight. So like there gives me a lot of opportunities to make things happen there. There's a lot of creativity for being able to fix your loadouts when you first enter a round. And I think it's very important for players to know, especially if you're new to the game, having a smudge stick on you at all times, it's very important. Because if a ghost ever starts hunting and you don't have a smudge stick, and you're cornered somewhere without a hiding spot, you're dead. So if you can hold an igniter on you more often than not, because you have an igniter in your inventory and it didn't take up a spot, this is huge. This is huge stuff. This is a new way to play the game, to be more safe more often. I'm going to try this out. I'm very interested to see how this works. Unlocking a new reward that is not tied to leveling up will now show a pop-up on the mission summary screen. Ooh, I like that. That's cool. Nice little UI change there. Ghostwriting books now play new sounds when closed. Okay. So when a ghostwriting book gets closed, it's going to play a sound. I wonder if that's going to impact if the ghost kicks a book, it is not going to write in it. Is it going to make a sound? Something to keep in mind. If you didn't know, if a ghost on professional, intermediate, or amateur kicks a book, that means that it's not going to be ghostwriting as a piece of evidence. So I'm wondering if that's going to make the sound, to let you know. Added Kate and Catherine to possible ghost first names. All right. Ghosts can now leave single fingerprints on small lamps and TV remotes in all locations. Ooh, more opportunities for fingerprints. Never a bad thing. Never a bad thing at all. Small lamps and TV remotes. Keep an eye on your small lamps and TV remotes in any map in Phasmophobia. See if you get some fingerprints. That's cool. I like that. I like that a lot. We still have so much to get through even at this point. We're just getting the changes now, and you can see on the right-hand side how much more there is to this update. So we're going to kind of speed run this a little bit so we can get through it all. Changes. Equipment. You can no longer swap inventory slots while taking a photo. Okay. I didn't even know you could do that originally, so that's kind of cool to know, and you probably shouldn't be able to do that anyway. Remove flashlights from Hide and Seek Extreme, as they were disabled from settings. So that is talking about a certain weekly challenge mode. So this could take the flashlights out of it, so it's changed a weekly challenge. Deja Vu, another weekly challenge, now has UV T1 instead of T2 to keep it a flashlight. Okay, cool. Glow Stick in the dark weekly now has T2 instead of T1 to keep it glow stick. Okay. Yeah, so these are all, so far, these three right here, they are weekly challenge updates to change what the other changes to the equipment is above to make that impact the weekly challenges. So for example, obviously we know the glow stick which switched around. Tier 2 is now tier 1, tier 1 is now tier 2. So they had to make that change inside of the glow in the dark challenge. Asking the Ouija board bone locations question will now drain 20% sanity down from 50%. Oh, let's go. That's a huge one. I sometimes struggle to find the bone, as I'm sure a lot of us do, and I don't want to sacrifice all my sanity to asking that question, so sometimes I just leave without finding the bone. But now that it's going to take less, that's a huge win in my book. Due to bone rewards not being included in the reward Due to bone rewards not being included in the reward multiplier. Yeah, exactly. The bone really is only being collected at this point to allow you to get an additional photo or to get a perfect game. So, I mean, the fact that we were losing a lot of sanity for something that wasn't giving us a lot of money didn't make a lot of sense. Lighting the summoning circle candle will now instantly end the setup phase. So that means that if you go down into wherever the summoning circle is in the map and you're still in the setup phase, you will leave that setup phase immediately and the round will begin. The round will begin. The ghost is going to be aggressive. So that is good to note. This is another thing I didn't even know existed, because I never usually go downstairs and summon the ghost immediately at the beginning of the round. Usually I wait until, a little bit later on after I at least know a little bit about the ghost. Maybe I'm trying to get a free ghost photo or something, but that's kind of interesting to note. Ghost. Non-ghost writing ghosts now close the book after throwing it. This is exactly what I was talking about with the one a little bit above, about it making a noise when the ghost closes the book. So that's going to mean, again, that more than likely when the ghost closes the book, it's going to mean you have no ghost writing. That's going to be the case on professional, intermediate, or amateur, because on Nightmare, it could be hiding the ghostwriting evidence, so never take that for granted on anything above professional. Ghosts can no longer interact with already knocked down paintings. This is kind of funny. If you guys didn't know, sometimes when the ghost was interacting with a painting that was on the ground already, it was picking the painting back up and putting it back on the wall, which looked really, really funny. And I'm kind of sad they took that out because it was pretty hilarious. Shades can no longer blow out fire sources or writing in ghostwriting books if there are people in the room that keep their strength consistent. Good. Yeah, shades were acting very unshade-like. They were getting very brazen. They were doing stuff when people were around, and it didn't make any sense. Whenever I was doing a no evidence run, if it ever like blew out, like if it threw something in front of me, or if it like, you know, blew out a candle or wrote in a book in front of me, I was always saying it wasn't a shade. Because that's what the book says. That's what the journal says. They shouldn't be doing those things in front of you. So now this is consistent. I'm glad to hear it. Improve the ghost's ability to interact with closed doors. Good, I like that. Improve Banshee AI targeting when stalking a player. Good, because sometimes the Banshee wasn't stalking anybody and it was just kind of hanging out in its room, not doing what it was supposed to be doing. So that's a good improvement. I wish to see the ghost will now limit your vision after the ghost event instead of before to allow you to see the ghost. If you were ever wanting to see the ghost when you were playing solo and you wanted to use the monkey paw to get a ghost photo, you would have noticed you said, I wish to see the ghost. Then you would lose your vision, and there would be a ghost somewhere in front of you, and you wouldn't be able to see it. Now, you can get the photo and then lose your vision. That's the way it should work. That makes more sense, because if I want to see the ghost, I'm trying to get a free ghost photo. Let me do it before you take my vision away, or else I did it for nothing and I'm going to die. So this is a good improvement. Increase the sanity drain on one of the ghost events to match other events. Well, which event are you talking about? That doesn't give me a lot of information at all. I guess maybe they don't want you to know. Maybe they don't want you to know. Maybe it's a secret. Okay. Environment. Paranormal Paparazzi and Hide and Seek weekly challenges now take place in Point Hope. Cool. We got Point Hope weekly challenges now. So we can add the new map into the mix for the rotation. That's cool. Drastically improve the sunrise visuals. I like that. It's going to be maybe a little bit more light in the morning. Turning on several light switches in the room, but not all, will now drain sanity at a reduced rate instead of the full sanity drain speed. Okay, that's definitely an improvement. I'm glad that was fixed. I didn't even know this was a thing, so that's cool. That's cool. Props that don't move when hit with another prop will no longer play an additional impact sound. Okay, so that means that if you had an object that got thrown and it hit an additional object, it's not going to make a whole bunch of random sounds. It's going to sound accurate based on what's happening. And I notice this sometimes where I get fooled and I'd be like, was that a poltergeist bomb? And I would go inside the dining room and realize that only one object was thrown. So I was like, why did it sound like a million objects were thrown? It's because of that bug right there with the environment. Adjust all weather distant fog color for better blending with the horizon. This was needed. Fog colors with like any sort of light look awful. It looks too thick. With 3 C's in a Q, it's too hard to see. So I hope that's a big improvement there. Remove Point Hope teaser from all maps and lobby. Okay, so no more UV puzzle inside of the lobby to be able to figure out that Point Hope's the next map. And it makes sense. Optimize assets across all maps. Good. More asset optimization to be able to prepare for console. Lowered resolution for light cookies, flashlights, shapes, etc., but increased resolution for skylights. Okay, more improvements happening there to allow for better optimization. Move the green bowl in Edgefield living room to help with the lamp interaction and new fingerprints. Okay, so this is the bowl by where the music box spawns in Edgefield. So they removed that to get a better opportunity of fingerprints with a small lamp there. Got it. Okay, I can see it. So when you go into Edgefield to the left, that is where the living room is. On the little end table there, when you first enter the living room to the right, is a little lamp and 2 photos in a bowl. And there's an opportunity for the music box to spawn there. They want the ghost to interact with the lamp more there, so they took the bowl out, so that way the ghost can hit the lamp. Makes sense. I got it. The Tanglewood utility room door can now be closed correctly by the ghost. That's good. Yeah, I mean, if this would really mess up Yuri abilities if that didn't happen before, so that's good. Medium tent windows now have correct collision on both sides. That's fantastic. For some reason, sometimes an object would fly through the tent. It would go out the window like it didn't even exist there, but now hopefully that won't happen anymore. It'll be the correct collision base. Moving on down to audio. Adjust audio effects to help identify if sounds are above or below you. That's great because I think that's definitely needed, especially on bigger maps. It's kind of hard sometimes to tell, is the ghost going to come up from the basement or is it going to come up down from the upstairs area? I know one of the places I love doing this is Ridgeview. Sometimes I'll sit inside of the dining room in Ridgeview, and I'll be sitting there hearing the ghosts on a different floor than me. I'll be like, is it going to come from below? Is it going to come from above? I don't know. So hopefully this makes it much easier to figure it out now. Sounds that are one floor above are now bass boosted and muffled. Sounds that are one floor below are more muffled and quiet. Okay, so if they're below you, it's quiet. If they're above you, it's louder but muffled. I guess that makes sense. That's more realistic, and I like that. Sounds that are 2 floors above you will have more extreme effects and volume reduction. That's going to play a big part in Point Hole Blade House because there's so many different floors. So if it's 2 floors above you, I'm wondering what it's going to sound like. I have to experience that in game. The heartbeat sound will no longer be altered by reverb or other audio effects. That's good because sometimes it was too loud. Especially when you take the tier 3 sanity pill, sometimes that noise was so loud. Audio levels for the ambient room tone and Ouija board have been remastered to bring them in line with other sounds. Good. More sound optimizations. Reduce the volume for the writing book sound for ghostwriting book tier 3. Okay. I didn't think it was that loud before, but maybe it was. Maybe it was bothering some players. So hopefully if that was the case, if the tier 3 writing book was too loud for you, maybe this will be easier now. I kind of like the fact that it was loud because then I was able to hear the ghostwriting from across the house and be like, oh, I have ghostwriting. But I guess we're not going to have that anymore. That kind of stinks. UI, difficulty, money, and prestige level up pop-ups have received new images. Nice. A little bit of the UI changes there. Improve color accuracy for several UI components. Increase the width of the scroll bars in the shop to make it easier for VR players. That's good. That's good. VR players inside of like interface in the lobby has always been a bit of a sore spot for VR. So I'm glad that's going to be easier for them. Several ID card titles have been renamed and shortened. Changed interaction amount to activity level in custom settings to better reflect what it does. Okay. Interaction amount to activity levels. I think that's going to make a lot more sense because I know whenever you go ahead and you smudge a ghost, it reduces their activity level down. It chills them out, whenever you cleanse them. So I think that makes a lot more sense. They're just kind of changing some terminology there. It's the same thing. It's just named something different. Fixes. Player movement will no longer be affected by equipment. Oh my God. Player movement will no longer be affected by held equipment. If you ever held the tier 3 cleanse smudge stick, the tier 3, the thing that was on a chain that you swing around, the tier 3 smudge, it would go under the floor and make it so you couldn't walk while crouched. You would hit like a block. It would make you move diagonally. Or if you were carrying a tripod, it would do a very similar thing. It would make it so your character slowed down momentarily. So I hope that's fixed because that got me killed a couple times. And it was so aggravating because it was outside of my control. I wanted to use the tier 3 smudge. I couldn't. It kept slowing me down when I had a fast ghost and it got me killed. So that's a big, big change right there. Stamina recovery will correctly now start even if you're still looking down the sprint button, but not moving. So I'm wondering if you were holding down the sprint button, your shift button, if you're on keyboard and mouse, if it was utilizing your stamina even if you weren't moving, because it shouldn't, because you're not actually moving. So that's interesting. I'm going to have to see how that feels in real time. There is no longer a visual glitch when rapidly equipping and unequipping the headgear as one of the player models. That's kind of funny. I'm surprised that was even a thing, but I'm glad they fixed it, I guess. Could you imagine like the character's headgear when you equip it and unequip it so fast? It's just like floating above their head like it doesn't even exist. Pretty funny. You can now change your sprint mode while in-game in VR. Good, I like that. Fix several areas with the VR teleport movement could not teleport to. So we got some VR changes there, the last two bullet points. Changing your sprint mode to hold from toggle on PC while sprint is toggled on will no longer keep you sprinting. Got it. That's exactly what I had mentioned above here with the stamina recovery. I was wondering if it was still going to use my sprint even if I was not sprinting, but I had the button pressed, and thankfully that's going to be fixed. Very good changes there. Remove sprinting field of view increases due to graphical issue. When your character sprinted, sometimes it would make the field of view a little bit different, and it would look like you're like more zoomed in and more in the mode, like you're running away from something very like climactically. But it may take, I think it took that away now because it was causing graphical issues with people's GPUs and stuff. So that's good. If it's going to make the game optimized and better suited for that, then I'm all for it. Moving down to the ghost changes, and we're still got a long way to go. Hanging paintings thrown by the ghost will no longer fall through the floor. Big call out to Willow Street House. This happened in Willow Street House living room a lot. Glad it's not going to happen anymore. I would see a picture down in the basement. I'd be like, how did this get here? The ghost and bone can no longer get stuck in several locations. The ghost getting stuck was always funny, although it kind of ruined gameplay. But the bone getting stuck was always absolutely infuriating. Not knowing where the bone is, looking around forever to try to get your perfect game, not finding it. I'm so glad this has been addressed because so many people have reported bugs for it on their Discord for so long. So it needs to keep getting addressed every time it happens. Yuri can now use their ability on doors that are open at the start of the game. Okay, good. So if you have open doors enabled in your custom settings, especially if you're on amateur and intermediate, they'll be able to slam that door shut even if it's already starting open. Demon and Banshee attempting to use their ability but failing will no longer add to the ability use stat. Good, because sometimes the demon would never ever use its ability. I swear it wouldn't happen. But I go to the gaming stats and be like, it did it 6 times. And I'm like, how? It never even hunted once. Like, it just didn't make any sense. So I'm glad this is fixed. I'm glad it's going to reflect correctly now. That way, if there is a bug with the demon or the Banshee, we can positively go ahead and take a screenshot of that details page, post it to their Discord. Ghosts will no longer keep throwing the same object over and over and will instead choose more varied items with its interaction range. This is going to help people try to identify poltergeists. It's not going to seem like it's just throwing one item over and over again. It's going to make more of an impact. It's going to throw more items to be more easily visible that is a poltergeist. So that's good changes. A ghost will no longer... Oh, I read that right. Hide and Seek Extreme now correctly has 3 evidences instead of only 2. That's good. Hide and Seek Extreme is another weekly challenge, so that's a change to that weekly challenge right there. Ghost event player detection will no longer include dead players if they didn't move after dying. I didn't even know this was a thing either. It seems like a pretty massive bug right there. So I'm glad this changed because dead players should never impact the gameplay at all, other than picking stuff up around the map and throwing it at you and stuff like that. Equipment changes. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of equipment changes. Here we go. Motion sensor tier 2 and tier 3 detection sounds can now be heard consistently. Love it. Parabolic tier 2 now displays the correct volume values. Love it. You can no longer get readings of the parabolic mic when in the truck. I remember taking advantage of this a couple times on Edgefield because the Edgefield truck is so close to the map. Sometimes I was trying to get parabolic from outside the map just to see if I could do a no doors run or anything. And I guess they took that away. So that makes sense. You have to be inside the map now. Dots 1 and UV 2 lights will no longer stop emitting when placed in some areas. Okay, that's fantastic. If you don't have any flashlights on, you have to utilize other forms of light, like tier 2 UV, like a glow stick or something, to be able to give you light sources. So the fact that it wasn't working correctly was always a bit of a sore spot. So hopefully that works correctly now. Changing in the sound sensor size in the trucks can only change the area effect UI instead of the equipment UI. I don't even know what that means, but okay. The parabolic microphone will no longer pick up sounds when in the truck. You pretty much already said that above here. The parabolic microphone will no longer pick up sounds when in the truck. You can no longer get readings of the parabolic microphone when in the truck. It just repeated itself twice. I don't understand. EMF reader tier 1 will now point the needle closer to the EMF value instead of including the EMF value above and below it. This was talked about earlier in the equipment changes, so this is already known. You can no longer take multiple photos of the same EF interaction by using your inventory to refresh the EMF spot. So if you don't know what this is, I'll talk about it real quick. If you had a cup thrown, if the ghost threw a cup, you could take a photo of it, you could pick it up in your inventory, and you could place it back on the ground, and it would refresh the interaction. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, but it was a glitch, and now it's fixed, which is good, because people were cheesing photos with it. Headgear tier 2 will no longer be detected by the ghost when on the flashlights are disabled in the custom settings. That's great. Didn't really make a lot of sense. I don't even know why you would wear headgear tier 2 if the flashlights are disabled in custom settings, because it's not going to work. But I guess people were doing it and finding it difficult, so it's changed. An active parabolic microphone will no longer muffle your audio when picked up while holding another item. I definitely noticed that sometimes the parabolic microphone would kind of the audio would get muffled when I get a response, and I couldn't hear what it was saying, and I didn't know why. Now I know this is why. So it's been changed, and that's fixed. That's good. All sound sensor tiers and firelight tiers are now more stable when placed in VR. I noticed that whenever my friends on Community Fridays would place down a lantern, the lantern would continue to shake if they were in VR, and it would shake non-stop until a non-VR player picked it up and placed it back down. And I guess this was a massive issue because for some reason it was making it so it was unstable and off balance. So hopefully this is fixed now. You can no longer light other people's incense by physically moving a fire source into it. I could have swore they've tried to fix this numerous times now. Hope they finally do fix it, because a lot of people will troll and light people's light sources or their incense, and they'd be left defenseless. So it was a really interesting way to troll your friends. VR players can now consistently place a video camera on a tripod that is still attached to the truck wall. Again, this has to do with VR stability issues of VR players not being able to place something down without it constantly vibrating. So I hope this is fixed for them. The Ouija board will no longer break when saying goodbye with 0 sanity. So if you get to the Ouija board with that 0 sanity mark and you say goodbye, it will not break and you'll luck out and it won't cause a cursed hunt. So hopefully this stops the boards from breaking for a lot of people out there. Crucifix Tier 3 will now be successfully used for all players after it prevents a cursed hunt. That's good. That's good. So yeah, Crucifix Tier 3, sometimes it seemed like it wasn't using a charge, especially if it had stopped a cursed hunt, like if you were about to break the Ouija board and you knew where the ghost was going to spawn, but the Tier 3 Crucifix inside the room, break the Ouija board. Sometimes it was using a charge of the Crucifix, sometimes it wasn't. It should be more consistent now. Extinguished matches will no longer light other objects. Oh, that makes sense, okay. You can no longer need to swap hands between tarot cards and draw in VR. Oh my god, I don't play in VR much, so I didn't even know this is a thing. But that must have been very infuriating, so I'm glad that it got fixed for VR players out there. Grabbing and swapping props or equipment in VR will no longer set the wrong hand position and rotation. Good. And again, when we're talking about console release, there's so many issues with VR. That's another reason I think why it's not out on console yet. It's because they need to fix these first. So it's going to take a lot of time. They're kind of working in the right direction already. So hopefully we're getting there. We're getting there. Igniters can no longer be used if another player uses its fuel. Okay, so if one player uses all the matches in a matchbox, if another player picks them up, it will be an empty matchbox. Or if they use all the charges inside of a Bic lighter, the Tier 2 igniter, when they pick it up, it won't do anything. Tripod Tier 3 placement highlight is now visible when it's first placed. Okay, so you can see where you're going to be placing that tripod before you place it. UI for text voice recognition will no longer get stuck if another player grabs the Ouija board while you're using it. Okay, this could explain why sometimes people would not be able to have their voice heard by the Ouija board. If some player was trying to grab it and such, and there was like a little bit of a tug of war happening with it, maybe it would bug it out. Hopefully it's fixed now. All motion sensor map icons are now accurately sized on maps. I'd like to see this. I have to go see this in game. I want to see if I put down a motion sensor or sound sensor, how big does it actually show up on the map? And does it show in the right spot? Because it wasn't really before. It was kind of janky. We're almost there, friends. We're down to the sound section. Impact sounds will no longer play multiple times at once. It was talked about a little bit earlier up in a different section of this patch notes, so that is already known. Skipping the animations when you level up more than once will no longer skip the previous levels unlock pop-ups. Okay, so yeah, if you like very early on, you're like level 2, and you level up 3 times in a round, if you skip it, it won't skip up all the pop-ups for all the levels you unlocked. Challenge maps will now be correct. Good. Challenge map names will now be correct. That's good. That's good. You can no longer complete the ghost photo objective when there is no space for photos in the journal. This sucks. This is terrible because I never want to be able to waste a ghost photo slot. I never want to waste a photo slot on a potential ghost photo because sometimes the ghost photo is so tricky to get. You'll take a photo of the ghost towards the end of an event, it'll disappear at the last moment, and you'll miss it. Or you'll try to get it during a ghost hunt, it'll blink and you'll miss it, and you ruin your perfect game. I wish they would have kept this change not in the game until they did the new photo rework, which should be coming later this year, I hope. Because that's going to allow you to delete photos that you get 0-star photos of and try again. So now they're forcing you to save a photo for the ghost photo if you have the ghost photo objective. And that, I don't like that at all. I just don't like it. Known issues. Deogen pathing can be inconsistent during hunts on Point Hope. Okay, I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I mean, it makes sense. It has so many different floors to go through to try to get to you. It's probably going to get caught on something, or it's going to get stuck on, some sort of like furniture or something. Who knows? Small items can occasionally fall through the walls of Point Hope. Okay. Interactions can sometimes repeat multiple times. Interesting. And MSAA will cause visual effects while dead. Visual artifacts while dead. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna probably turn my MSAA off for now, just so I don't see that, or I just won't die. Maybe we'll just try not to die. That was a lot of information, and we can definitely see why now. This is the biggest update Phasmophobia has had all year. There's so much stuff that probably should have been broken into smaller updates and given to us throughout the year, but for some reason they decided to jam it all into one update and call it 0.10. I don't really get that. I think in the future, I hope the Phasmophobia developers give us smaller updates over time. That way we can test things out together as a community and try to see what works and what doesn't. Because if there's bugs here, the game's going to be bug-ridden forever. Like, it's going to be hard for them to fix it now because there's so much here going on. And one thing I want to shout out is these patch notes are so redundant. There was things that were mentioned in several different sections, and I don't know who proofread this, but I think that this should have been a little bit more tailored. There's a lot of information here. It's very hard to absorb as a player, especially even me, a player that's played the game now since it came out. It's a lot to take in. I want to see more updates spread out over time. It's going to be easier to consume, and it's going to be less overwhelming because I feel a little overwhelmed. I don't know if you do too. Feel free to put your thoughts and comments down below. But overall, this is a really, really good update, and I've been craving, and as I know you have, for a new map in Phasmophobia. New content, new balances, new fixes, so many things. And like I said before, I think we're working towards the direction of a console release. I think it's coming soon. I really think we're going to have more information probably within the next month. I would have to imagine. Maybe even a release date. So please, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to comment in the section below. I'm going to be doing a lot more educational style Phasmophobia content now that we have all this content to work with. So if you like the content and you like Phasmophobia, make sure you drop a follow or a subscribe to see more videos in the future, as I'm going to be continuing providing more educational Phasmophobia content very soon. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, enjoy the new update and stay crispy.